Jacqueline again from Quirky Bird Watercolours. Just thought I would pop on here just to record a very quick and simple tutorial, and just to give you a little bit of information regarding brushes. Now, the two types of brushes that I'm going to be talking about this evening are the flat brushes. So I've just got these two flat brushes here, and then I'm going to be talking about the round-headed brushes. Now, when we're doing watercolours, you can actually achieve some amazing results using either a flat head brush or a round head brush. And this little exercise that I'm going to show you today just goes to prove how many different strokes and textures you can achieve using a certain brush. So what we'll start with is I'm going to start with just using this little round headed brush here, and this is a size 6 and it's one that I use really quite often, so I'll just put those away. Now, one thing I do want to talk about is how you actually hold your paintbrush. Now, if you hold your paintbrush like a pencil, you end up with quite a limited range of movement. So I'll just demonstrate that to you just on this piece of paper here. So in my palette, I've just got some nice blue. So I'll just load my brush up with the watercolour. Just dab the excess off. Now, if you hold it like a pencil, the range of movement that you have is pretty much that. It's very, very limited, and the same going across. It is really a short range of movement. So I'll just load my brush back up again. If you hold the brush further up the handle of the brush, your range of movement is completely different, because you actually then start using your arm and not just your fingers. And putting your hand at the middle of the brush just gives you such a greater range of movement compared to closer down, when you're just left with that. Really, you can't, can you see the difference? You really can't move your brush very far at all. So it's always better to hold your brush like a pencil still, but actually towards the middle of the handle, and just get used to how that feels. You can then use your little finger to rest on your piece of work, but it just literally creates a much greater level of movement compared to if you were there and then you've only got that, and it becomes quite scratchy. So halfway up the handle, you can always rest your little finger, but then that creates a much greater range of movement when you're working on your watercolour. So still sticking with the round-headed brush, I shall just turn my piece of paper over. And this very, very simple exercise is worth remembering, and it's worth using as a bit of a warm-up exercise if you are going on to paint some kind of picture, because it really does sort of get you used to your brush, used to your paints, and used to your paper. So, using the very tip of your round-headed brush, you can create some really fine lines. So we can put in some across. So that's just using the very, very tip of the brush. If we wanted to make our strokes just that little bit thicker, then what you need to do is just apply more pressure through the brush. Can you see that? So it's exactly the same brush, but we've now got a thicker line of colour. Okay. Now it's always worth trying to do different shapes and forms with your brushes. So one of the things that a round-headed brush is very, very good at is you can actually practice being very, very fine, taking it through quite thick, and then lifting the brush off, and there you have a leaf shape. So it's worth just practicing and just using your brush. So again, starting off very, very fine, putting the pressure through the brush, and then lifting up. And you can use that technique for just making some little leaves. So if we just draw a very fine little twig, and then we'll just put some leaves in. So again, starting away, putting the pressure down, and then lifting up. So again, this one, so we'll start very, very fine, put the pressure on, and lift up. And again here, starting very, very fine, put the pressure on, and lift up. And you can see there that you've then created quite a simple shape of some twigs and some leaves. Now you can also use your round brush to create flowing circles. So if you hold the brush away from you and then come all the way round, you can create a circle of colour. So again, just coming back, holding your brush the other way, so you're working from the bottom round, just then apply the paint in a circular motion just to create those circles of colour. So moving on, and so that's worth practicing with your round-headed brush, because you can really start to get some different textures and different results using just one particular brush. So get used to using it very, very finely. Try it a little bit thicker. Try the pressure going through the centre of the brush and lifting off to form these leaf shapes. And have a go at doing the little twigs and the leaves, and I think you'll be quite surprised that it really is quite simple to do. So moving on, we can then be working with our little flat brush. Now this little flat brush can also be called a wash brush, and it provides all sorts of different textures through your work. So this flat brush is a number 3, and I'll just show you how that differs. Now again, just using the watercolour, load it onto the brush. You can use it like a chisel almost, and just drag the paint down. So you literally just put the edge on and just drag it down. If you wanted to apply it a little bit thicker, you can do that. And you then have a nice broad stroke of colour. So again, I'm just finding it easier just where the camera is, just to sort of push it away from me on this one. Now one of the things that this is very, very good at is create, and we worked quite hard on shading when we did the little quirky houses over the weekend, but this little flat brush can also give you the texture of bricks. So you can just make some little rectangles. You see that? And that just gives you a different shape and form. And the other thing that you can do with the flat brush is you can also work in swirls, so we can sort of work it around. like so. So as you can see, your just two brushes, the flathead one and the little round one, the round head one, just gives you so many different options. And just doing this little 5-10 minute exercise is just a way of being able to get used to your brush, used to colour, which we talked about yesterday, and it also gets used to how the paper feels. So it's always worth just doing something very, very simple on a little bit of scrap paper before you actually start a specific picture. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this little tutorial this evening. Just a very fun, quick exercise, but it just gives you an idea as to what you can actually achieve. So have a play, have a practice, have a workout with regards to these leaves and this kind of shape. And one thing that will be very, very good for you to have a go at is using the flatter brush, this brush, ahead of when we do the beach huts. So if you can have a go at working with these different shapes and the different brush strokes, so when we do the beach huts, that will be great. So have a go. It'd be lovely to see how you get on. Have some fun. And I'll be back again soon with episode 3.